Hello and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. I'm back this week after Jason and Dan did a great job last week on video games. So I got a business moment to start us off with. Again, going back to the Bud Light commercials.
Okay, the Dilly Dilly.
I saw Bud Light entered into an agreement with the NHL to name the penalty box for the opposing team the Pit of Misery.
Okay.
And I just think that's outstanding.
Well, as a hockey fan, it's nice to see them getting, some attention from a big sponsor, obviously.
Yeah, but it's a great tie-in. The fans will really get into it. I'm sure we're going to hear Dilly Dilly, which will make Budweiser extremely happy. I wouldn't be surprised if the Blue Night or the Bud Light Night, I guess I don't know what you call it, Blue Night or Bud Light Night, and the King, maybe they're going to start making appearances and come on tour. It'd be interesting to see what happens.
It would be. It would be indeed.
I mean, you could buy the Bud Light Night, the seat right next to the penalty box in certain arenas, and when the game's on television, he could be like the jailkeeper.
Okay. I'd get into that.
It's a fun thing. I'm into that. I mean, that's what I would do, but I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But I think Bud Light has had a lot of fun with this campaign. And at the same time, a lot of people lose track of it, but that campaign is aimed at craft beer.
Oh, I did not know that.
It said Bud Light is the beer for the masses.
Ah.
See, that's where they're going with that. It's going at the craft beer people. So its taste is more acceptable. More people like it, yada, yada, yada. So it's interesting to see how it does.
I completely missed that message in the commercial. I thought it was just
that's there.
I thought it was just a goofy Dilly Dilly, hope we get another, Budweiser or Frog kind of situation and What's Up and all that other stuff. Was What's Up? Was that Bud Light?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I actually saw that in a movie recently that threw that out again, which I thought was kind of weird.
Frogs or Bud Light. I mean, there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's always been a fun brand.
Yeah. Good for them.
It's good that you can have a fun thing with your product that gets people to remember it, and that's what you want to do. You want to walk into a bar, walk in a grocery store, and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to try Bud Light. So we'll see.
Now, having watched Mad Men, obviously, an amazing show for anyone that hasn't watched it yet, go watch it. It's on Netflix. When I think of an ad like Dilly Dilly, right, which seems quite silly, not to rhyme, but it just happened. But that seems like a hard sell, unless I guess I can only imagine like there's got to be like the Don Draper of those sorts of ads, that can convince people. We're going to say, I have a king, and they'll say Dilly Dilly, Dilly Dilly, and people will love it.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta pitch it to somebody that's got an imagination. And, like the Budweiser people have always had fun, and they're always looking for the next big thing, like What's Up and the Frogs and everything else, right?
Right.
So they're always looking for the next big thing, and when this sounds like it could be that thing, and it could be, and then you get creative with the refrigerators in Cleveland. And there wasn't even that many refrigerators, but it was still a cool, everybody talked about it. It was on national TV.
Yeah.
The value of it was, I forget how many $1 million it was. It generated publicity for Bud Light. And I mean, but it was also a fun thing.
Oh, very much so. But I mean, like I said, I'm trying to imagine like that pitch meeting, like, 'cause I feel like they get probably, it being the brand that they are, they probably get lots of silly pitches. So I just, I want to know what the guy. I would love to sit in on that pitch just to see like how they sell that.
Yeah.
Because it'd be interesting.
Well, we're in the week
5.
But 5 weeks of the NFL season, right?
Indeed.
So I'm going to revisit my picks.
Okay.
So since I had the Steelers and the Vikings in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
I'm not doing too good. I get two teams that are 2-2, 2-2 and 1, right?
2-2 and 1. Yeah.
Yeah, but my teams are 2-2 and 1. Definitely have to label the Chiefs as my surprise team.
Mm-hmm.
I did not think they would be like this, but they sure are. And the Rams have a lot of, I thought the Rams were going to be good. We both picked them to make the playoffs. But, the coaching and the aggressiveness and the way they play is really, and they really played the second half, so they were the 2 receivers out
Yeah.
in concussion protocol. So that was a very
Rookies.
quarterbacks drafted in the first round, but they won their games.
Yes, they did.
But Baker Mayfield's been impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, I would
Eagles
say,
a bit disappointing, but that Super Bowl hangover that you sometimes have and sometimes say that the Super Bowl hangover is tough, and I can see the Eagles are kind of fighting it right now.
they are. Well, they also, I mean, you're reintegrating Carson Wentz, who, wasn't there for the Super Bowl run. You lost a couple of, you lost, Trey Burton to the Bears, as his second tight. I mean, I know it's the replacement with Dallas Goedert, but it's like you lost a couple pieces. You're reintegrating, Carson Wentz, and you have a team that everybody circled. You're the Super Bowl champs. Everybody wants to beat you now. And not to give credit to a team in the AFC we're going to have to talk about. But that's one thing I'd have to say over the course of their 15, 20-year run, whatever it's been with Tom Brady, is that the Patriots always seem to be up.
Well, leaving out the Steelers.
Yes.
Which team is the biggest disappointment to you? Which team's the biggest surprise?
I think biggest disappointment would either be, despite their win today, either the Vikings, who have a home loss to the Bills where they got destroyed. And I think you could argue the team that the Steelers played today, Atlanta, with all that talent, they went. They're 1-3 or 1-4 right now, right?
Yeah. They're 1-4, and their offense didn't look that good today. I mean, Julio Jones didn't even have 50 yards receiving.
No, and considering
You're playing the Steelers team's been shredded by the likes of Joe Flacco
and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. I would say, as far as biggest surprise, I think the Chiefs being 5. I sort of thought the Chiefs, once Mahomes was coming in, I liked him coming out of Texas Tech, but I thought this was going to be almost like his rookie year. Like they were, when they got rid of Alex Smith and installed him, despite, Kareem Hunt and some of the weapons they had, I sort of thought this was like a integrate Patrick Mahomes sort of a year, like a 8-8 sort of season. And they're 5-0 and looking really strong. I mean, because even Nagay against the best defense in football, they destroyed Jacksonville. Just destroyed them.
Well, them and the Eagles are my surprise. Eagles, I'm not saying they're disappointment to me, they're surprise. The team that's a disappointment to me is the Packers.
I didn't have expectations for the Packers, though.
I expected more out of the Packers. I mean, just because Aaron Rodgers and everything around him, I definitely expected more out of the Packers.
To me,
now it looks like the Bears could win that division.
Now I'll choose my words carefully here. This is, but Aaron Rodgers has won one Super Bowl that you could argue the Steelers blew. And while he does put up great stats, he doesn't have that many playoff wins. He's been hurt a good portion of his career.
He's been hurt a lot.
And yet people, he's constantly, for the last decade, all I've heard is Aaron Rodgers is the best footballer. Stephen A. Smith, Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. And I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Rodgers, but, he hasn't really done that much. Like, I know the analytics guys, and I know his QBR is higher than everybody else's, and he makes some amazing plays. But, that team hasn't won that much, considering the division they've been up until, recently with, Minnesota never being very good, Detroit's not been very good. I don't know. I'd like to see him do a little bit more before we get back to talk. I think there's other guys that are far more worthy of talking about than Aaron Rodgers, for considering how much airtime he seems to get. And again, he's fallen into that, superstar quarterback situation where when they win, Aaron Rodgers won the game. When they lose, everybody else screwed up. And at some point, he's got to be part, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like we hear a lot of talk about a guy that...
I can give you kudos for your Bengals pick.
Well...
Because you picked the Bengals to win the AFC North.
Because the Bengals are good. The Bengals have a really good defense.
But it's still Marvin Lewis.
Yeah.
And it's still September, October.
It's Marvin Lewis and Andy
That's all I'm
Dalton.
gonna say.
And, I mean, the Red Rocket, you don't have a lot of faith in them, especially as the weather gets colder. But they have a lot of weapons on offense. Joe Mixon is a legit stud at running back. And their defense is good. Their defense is really good. Their defense had 4 turnovers and 2 touchdowns today to help them get that win over the Dolphins. And today was back to, if we talk about the Bengals, they were down 17-0 going into the second half, and they came back and won by 2 touchdowns, and that's not very Bengals like. If you're gonna talk about the Bengals of the past few years,
Unfortunately, it's pretty Dolphins like.
It was very Dolphins like, yeah. But I mean, the Bengals look like a legit legit at least AFC North contender. They would be somebody you wouldn't want to face with the weapons they have. But, the team we saw on Thursday night, the Patriots, Julian Edelman's back. And Josh Gordon made 2 outstanding plays. And if he's there...
We know Josh Gordon has all the talent in the world. He's got 10-cent brain now.
Well,
so it depends on how long they're able to keep his brain intact.
I don't think it's his brain. I mean, he obviously has a lot of addiction and emotional issues that have, held him back throughout his career, But the Patriots seem like they're doing everything. Not that the Browns didn't, because it sounds like the Browns gave him a lot of chances and a lot of support. But, I mean, I think Tom Brady recognized that the team needed him, so that's why he put his locker right next to Tom Brady's locker. And I'm sure the Patriots probably have a babysitter for him to make sure he doesn't end up with alcohol or drugs. And I think, you watch the way they react when he caught that touchdown. And it was like their brother caught, like somebody they had known their whole life, caught their first touchdown. Like they were, it looks like the message in that locker room is make him feel like this is his safe place, this is his home, this is where he needs to be better. I mean, because they need him desperately.
Well, I'll be anxiously watching the Chiefs and Patriots next Sunday night.
Yeah, because today was kind of Mahomes' first real, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is a real test.
Yep.
And the Chiefs still, with the help of Blake Bortles, to be fair. He was very Bortles today.
They looked atrocious today. They looked like 2016 Blake Bortles.
He did. What's funny is on The Good Place. You don't watch The Good Place with Ted Danson, right?
Yeah.
I think I've recommended on the podcast before, but it's phenomenal. But one of the characters is from Jacksonville, Florida, and he's sort of a trashy person who always yells out Bortles and talks about how much he loves Blake Bortles as a quarterback. And this season, obviously, and the writers had sort of used his love of Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars as sort of this joke. And then all of a sudden, once the show took off, the Jaguars became really good. But now it looks like they'll be able to go back to writing Bortles jokes again because he's, that's another team that has all the pieces. It's just that the one piece that they don't seem to have is the quarterback.
We'll see where this goes. It's going to be interesting.
It is.
Well, NBA season getting ready to tip off. NHL season already started.
Mm-hmm. And the defending champs are 1-1 after they lost to the Penguins, who then went and got destroyed the next night. And for our Penguins 30 seconds, I won't even go to full minute. They've given up, I think, 12 goals in 2 games. So Matt Murray is not off to a very good start.
No, he's not.
And since the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, he has been a fairly shaky goalie for that young piece, which, as a Penguins fan,
Very inconsistent.
It's pretty
Very
disappointing.
inconsistent.
Yeah. But hopefully he'll ride the ship. And I'm sure there's some defensive issues too, but he has not looked good for quite a while now in a disturbing way. But the NBA, I guess the big news is...
I got like hockey games that are 7-6.
Well, I'm sure the NHL is looking at, the NFL rule changes and everybody else and being like, if our games were, if the average NHL score was probably like 7-8, they probably would get more eyeballs, right?
I would think so.
Because hockey fans might complain that it's not traditional hockey and you guys are ruining the game, but we're still going to watch. And if it's a more, more scoring makes people just, more scoring, more happy people. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the NHL slowly try to find ways to make, they've obviously done things in the past, where they, changed the length, the thickness of the pads of the goalie so they couldn't take up as much space and things along those lines. But I wouldn't be surprised if, if they decided, at least play with a few rule changes to make it a little more wide open.
The easiest thing would be to make the nets bigger.
It would be. But again, then all of a sudden, you've ruined the game,
Yeah.
Speaking of ruining
Same
games.
argument for raising the basket in the NBA.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ruining games, we'll have our Steeler minute right now. Did you watch Tomlin's post-game press conference?
I did not.
He spoke kindly about the team. As those of you who don't know, the Steelers won by quite a lot today. They look pretty good. But he had a little rant about the officiating. He said he can't keep quiet about it anymore. He said they're ruining the sport, and the NFL needs to get their blank together because he's pissed. He's real pissed.
There's a lot of people that even the commentators today were going crazy about the roughing the passer calls.
Well, I mean, this is obviously a much bigger deal than like 3 passes over. Even as a Steeler fan with the Jesse James thing, like this is a much bigger issue than a couple of questionable catches. Because they're calling like, you watch defensive players and the second they like touch the player, they're like lifting their hands up in the air and being like, I didn't do it, don't yell at me,
I know, it's really sad. It really is sad.
Because again, if you blitz through the line and you avoid the running back, and this is all happening in under 3 seconds, and you hit the quarterback in the middle where you're supposed to, not low at the knees where you can't hit him anymore, not high at the head where you can't hit him anymore, and the momentum of that play takes you where you take him to the ground and you land on him, that's just natural physics. You can't make that not happen.
The worst call I saw today was in the Eagles game where a guy comes in and he goes low, but he's kind of tripping over a block, and he grabs the quarterback around the thighs and just kind of hugs him, and his arms eventually get down below his knees, and the quarterback just kind of falls over. I mean, it was very soft. It was like, it wasn't a tackle. It was just like, if I'm holding you around both of your legs and you're trying to move, you're going to fall down. And that's what happened. That was a penalty. And it was like, that's one of the worst penalties I've seen.
And
it was sad. It was a really bad penalty.
And with T.J. Watt today, he was sort of stumbling through the line, and he basically reached out one hand once he saw and he tried to like pull the hand back, but his hand sort of basically grazed the knee area of the other quarterback. And, to his credit, Matt Ryan, of course, being the whiny little crybaby that he is, he, of course, started raising his hands up and they threw the flag. But if the defensive player goes out of their way to avoid the contact, like, if you're on the ground, you're going to have to grab low, Yeah. Because your job is still to bring the quarterback to his, bring him down. I mean, I don't know. And this seems like something they've got to address soon. Because I feel like if you're an official, like, just use your judgment. You know when it's roughing the quarterback and when it's not roughing the quarterback, I don't know.
You know exactly what it is. And I mean, you've got to, these guys are trying not to do it. And, if you're, it's just too ticky-tack. It's too ticky. And then on the other hand, I'm seeing people looks like Mortal Kombat going down a wide receiver and defensive back going down the line. So, and I know there's more pass interference penalties called, but there's a lot more pass interference going on.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Goodell needs to get his act together and figure it out.
Exactly.
Without ruining the game.
No, because I know with the pass interference, I know a lot of teams have sort of adopted what the Patriots did against the Colts, which is we're just going to mug your receivers basically every play, and eventually they'll stop calling it. That's what Chris Paul does in the NBA. He has his hands on you the entire game, and eventually they just stop calling him, which seems like a strategy that shouldn't work, but somehow it's worked for Chris Paul for an entire decade and for a lot of defensive backs as well. So, I don't know. Now, what do you think of the Jimmy Butler proposed trades?
Well, I was on vacation all week, so I know the trade to the Heat. I don't know what they would get in exchange for him from the Heat. What would they get?
They were going to get Jackson, a protected first-round pick, Tyler Johnson, a protected first-round pick, and there's that young center they have, not Whiteside, the other guy, which I thought is a great deal and apparently the Timberwolves called back and wanted even more. And Jimmy Butler's a weird player. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but he's had personality conflicts with his teammates in the last 2 places he's gone to, In Chicago, he got to go back home. Everyone thought, once Dwayne Wade got there, he sort of forced his way out of Chicago. He gets to Minnesota. He doesn't get along with Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins. He talks a lot of crap with you. It seems like he's not the most likable player. He's going to be 30 this year. And, as much as, people can bemoan the three-pointer, like, he doesn't shoot the three very well. I just, I don't even know if I'd want to give him the max if I'm a team, let alone give up a lot of assets to trade for him. But,
I think Thibodeau is worried that if he gives him up, he's got no shot this year. He doesn't have a shot anyhow.
No. I mean, honestly, if you're, Glenn Taylor and you invested all this money in Wiggins and all this money in Towns, unless Carl Anthony Towns is up in your office saying, I love Thibodeau, I'd probably let Thibodeau I would have let Thibodeau go this summer and bought in a new coach. And I know it's easier said than done to just bring in somebody new, but Thibodeau basically runs players into the ground physically. And I think the Spurs and the Lakers and LeBron and everybody's and the Warriors have shown that that's not the way to play basketball. To play, So if I have all this investment in two young players that, one potentially to be a star and hopefully the other one not to be a complete disappointment in Wiggins, like I don't think I want that guy with my young guys. Let alone a guy that's going to just bring in a bunch of old. I mean, Noah's free now, or he's about to be free from the Knicks. So if he signs Noah, that's pretty much the sign, the bad sign, I think. I don't know.
Well, I got an entertainment moment.
I got a couple of entertainment moments. Let's see what you got.
All right. A Simple Favor, which was a very interesting movie, kind of Twin Peaks-ish, quirky, but a really good story, told really, really well, with some interesting actors and actresses. Blake Lively does a really good job in the movie.
Okay.
I gotta give her props. She was very good in the movie.
I know Anna Kendrick, American Sweetheart, is in the movie.
Anna Kendrick was really good as well.
Let me see.
Very, very interesting movie. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I double-checked with Mom, and she said we have not discussed it, but I watched Heredity. And that was one of the scariest, most phenomenal movies I've seen in, years. I think if Toni Collette doesn't at least get nominated for an Oscar, it's absolutely ridiculous. I can tell you as someone who works in film and television, is a SAG actor, dramatic acting is far and away the easiest kind of acting to do. Comedy is very difficult, and then being able to legitimately show fear and mania and depression and sort of those sorts of those characteristics, those are incredibly difficult to portray on screen. And she does a phenomenal job of all this sort of stuff. And the movie is genuinely pretty terrifying.
Now, I haven't seen the movie, and I'm not sure I even know what it's about.
I don't think you want to know what it's about.
Okay. But you said you could see it, so I can see it. I get straight around and rent it.
Yeah, you can rent that one. One thing I would tell both you and other listeners, the first hour is a bit slow. It's a full 2-hour movie. The last hour flies by. The first part of the first hour is a bit slow, and it's got some pretty depressing, disturbing moments throughout it. But definitely it should be enough intrigue and mystery up to that point anyway. But definitely stick with it because it's definitely worth it. And then on your recommendation, I finally watched 3 Identical Strangers, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really good.
We obviously don't want to talk about it because people should just go watch it. It's a fascinating documentary.
Just go watch it. Just take our word for it. Go watch that one.
And I know it's been optioned into
it will make you think, and it will frighten you.
Yes. And I know it's been optioned into a feature film that's going to be made in the next, 2 years. But watch this documentary first. It's definitely, it's a mostly really well done documentary, but its story is absolutely just fascinating.
Absolutely is.
And I just, I was blown away. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I was too. All right, I got some food moments.
Because you were traveling again.
I was traveling. So the first one's from Newport Beach. It's a restaurant called Adrian's, and it's in Pelican Hill Resort. And every entree that we had was phenomenal. But they're known for this risotto that they put in. They prepare the risotto and then throw it into a wheel of Parmesan and let the heat of the risotto melt some of the Parmesan, scrape it all together, put it in your bowl, and it is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
That sounds very, very good.
It was very, very good. You would even like it.
Well, I'm not anti-risotto to begin with, so,
Okay.
let alone anti-Parmesan.
I know you're not anti-Parmesan. You're pro-Parmesan.
Very pro-Parmesan, yeah.
All right, then we went back to Trulux, which was in La Jolla. And I think I talked about that before. I had a 1.5 pound prime king crab leg. And it was to die for. It was awesome. And they have a 2 pound
Yeah. It sounds fascinating.
And then the third place was Vigliucci's, which was in Carlsbad, right on the ocean. And again, everything we had there was phenomenal. I happened to have my usual Cioppino, which was just super. I mean, everything was, the service was great, the view was great, and the food was great. So all three of those, I'd give 4.5 to 5 stars.
Nice. Very nice. I ate the same pizza place 2 weeks in a row, and the first week it was absolutely delicious, and this week it was not very good. So I don't really have a food moment.
So whoa, from delicious to not very good.
Well, it's a coal fire place, right?
Yeah.
And the first week, you know that good coal fire, you're probably gonna have you're gonna get that crispy edge, and you might get a couple black spots here and there.
Yeah.
That's what I got the first time. So it's a very small, very thin pizza, but they use fresh mozzarella. Pepperoni was good, but it was really crisp, you know?
Yeah.
And this time, the dough...
Was it soggy?
It was soggy, the dough was a little thicker, and it didn't have any crispness around the entire pizza.
No. There's nothing worse than soggy coal-fired pizza. And you have to watch with the toppings, because if the toppings have a lot of fluid in them, then it makes the crust soggy.
Well, this, I mean, you know...
I've actually gone to these places now, and I say, hey, I want you to cook it a little bit longer than you normally cook it. You can char it, and I'll say, actually char it. I like the black spots on it. I like it a little crisper.
Because that's, I mean, almost every coal fire place you go to, you get a couple little, I mean, from New York to Italy, you're going to get a few of those little black spots on the edge of the crust, you know? It's coal fire. You're cooking at a super high temperature, and today they're the crust just wasn't cooked. I mean, I guess technically it was cooked because I wasn't eating raw dough by any stretch, but you know what I'm saying? It just wasn't. It was very disappointing. I won't give their name out though because but I won't be getting my business anymore either.
So you're not going to give it the third try?
I know it wasn't outstanding. It wasn't great. It wasn't the best pizza ever. It was good the first time.
Okay.
It was a nice it's close to the house. It was a nice Sunday. Watch some football, eat some pizza. Without having to drive a ridiculous amount of time. Because New Orleans, it's not a great Italian city.
No.
So, there's a couple of pizza places. I think I mentioned one a couple weeks ago. It's pretty good. But that's like a 15, 20-minute car ride. So, and I wanted something I could just grab 5, 10 minutes from the house, bring back.
Sure.
Sit down, watch football, eat pizza. So, yeah. And it wasn't good enough. It was, like I said, it was very good the first. The crust was good the first time. Everything else was okay. The sauce, cheese, pepperoni was, the fresh mozzarella is obviously good, but,
Well, tomorrow morning I'm having breakfast in Nashville at the Loveless Cafe, which has amazing biscuits. So I'm looking forward to that tomorrow morning. And then Saturday, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh on Friday. And Saturday before I come home, I'm going to go to Fiore's with the cooler. And I got to bring home a bunch of subs.
Very nice.
Yes.
Oh, this is sort of a fake food moment, but I saw something that reminded me of you on a little, basically because I don't really like people anymore. My Facebook page has become basically puppies, otters, and food. I've kind of been able to filter everything else out. And I saw a burrata pizza.
Yeah, it can be really good, or it can be really soggy.
This one, it looked like the pizza itself was pretty crisp, and the burrata was still in the whole round part. And then once they brought it out to the table, then they sort of broke it and spread it around.
That could be good. I mean, I love burrata pizza, but I just don't like it when it's soggy.
Yeah. But I just thought, I was like, that's not a real food moment because neither of us got to eat it, but I was just thinking about it off the top of my head. I was like, burrata pizza, that looked kind of cool. So.
Yeah.
And I guess next week, we should definitely mention the baseball playoffs on some level.
Yeah, I mean, well, at this point, the Rockies lost again tonight.
They did.
So they're out. So now it's the Brewers. The Brewers will advance and play either the Dodgers or the Braves, and I'm assuming it's probably going to be the Dodgers.
Most likely.
So I think we're going to see the Brewers-Dodgers National League. In the American League, I think we're going to see
Mm-hmm.
But I would probably be more entertained by the pitching of the Astros versus the hitting of the Yankees.
I think technically, though, I mean, guys like Betts and all those, and they've been more consistent hitting team on the Red Sox.
They have, but
I know.
the long ball.
Yeah, and I mean, somebody else pointed this out, but like if you were like designing the perfect bench clearing brawl team, like this current Yankees team is just enormous.
Yeah. Okay, I have a whining moment.
Certainly.
Okay. So yesterday, Gary Cole strikes out 12 people, ties for the most ever in the postseason with Tom Seaver, gives up 3 hits, wins the game. And in the Yankee game, Kutch had a double off of the wall at Fenway Park. So 2 of my favorite Pirates ever are still in the postseason. They're just not wearing black and gold. So I'm whining about it.
That's understandable. For Kutch, I'm very happy to see him. Like I said, I'm bizarrely rooting for the Yankees because I want Kutch to win a World Series.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
The Cole one just hurts. Like, it just... Everything about that. The Cole trade, the Archer trade, just everything about it.
You get Cole this year and next year.
I know. There was a dumb trade because you didn't get much for him. And then you gave up more than... You gave up more than you gave up for... got for Cole to get Chris Archer. Like... It boggles the mind, Pirates.
It does boggle the mind.
But I am rooting, like I said, I all of a sudden become a Yankees. A temporary, I'm rooting because I just want to see McCutcheon in the World Series, and I want to see him play well. Because he was a great, like I said, I think I mentioned it before, but he was one of the all-time great ambassadors to Pittsburgh. And,
Yes.
So.
Because what's about Oklahoma State Cowboys lose again.
Yes, you did.
I get to the Oklahoma lose, so that made me. I was using gifts, and I was the happy, sad gift yesterday.
The happy, sad
Happy
gift.
Oklahoma lost, sad Oklahoma State lost.
We have always been a Notre Dame fan, too, and they're now a top 5 team in the country. So.
Yeah, they look legit.
They do look pretty legit. I thought they would, just eventually just sort of, once a certain generation was gone, that they were sort of just over. But, they seem to be resilient again,
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still not crazy about the coach. But we'll see. This looks like you've got a talented quarterback, and you have to have that to win.
Yes, you do. And they're always going to get, a few extra votes here and there that'll help them stay in the BCS picture, too, just because they are Notre Dame.
Well, I tell you, one of the best quarterbacks I've seen all year is this kid for UCF.
Last year's national champion, UCF?
I think he's legit.
Well, their last quarterback that was legit wasn't very legit.
This was way better than that one.
Bortles was pretty good.
I think they'll run and take. I think they'll undefeated, and then people are going to figure out what they're going to do with him.
Because Bortles was there when I was in grad school, and Bortles was actually, he was an exciting player,
Yeah. He's not as exciting as this guy.
Okay, that's good. It's very good.
But so we're definitely going to throw, because they were ranked 12 going in this week, and they won. So it's not, and with a couple teams losing in the top 10, they're going to be in the top 10 this week.
Well, Texas shot up to number 9, so they jumped out of the top 10 into the top 10. I don't know. The BCS is still scared of the last year's champion UCF Knights.
That's right.
Obviously I went to the school. I'm an alumni, so I'm obviously going to recognize the championship. But I think legitimately they beat all the teams that beat the teams in the champ. They should have had the shot. As we said before.
We'll see where it goes.
But that'll probably do it for this week. Once again, subscribe, rate, tell your family, tell your friends. Become a Sutton family member. Patreon.com.
Yep.
Even the tiniest bit helps every month.
Supporting your interests.
Yeah.
And as usual, we'll always take an email telling us, asking us to do something or give us some advice.
Yeah. And of course, you can tweet my dad and ask questions. We'll answer on the show as well. Because you're easier to find on Twitter, I think.
Yes.
Because I'm not a very active Twitter user, but he is. So you can find him. You'll be good to go. And next week we'll have probably more NFL football. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more baseball playoffs as well. And you'll be in Nashville, a good food city too. So.
I will. And I'll be reporting on that. But just for tomorrow.
Oh, just for tomorrow?
I go to Nashville, I go to Phoenix, and I go to Pittsburgh.
Okay. So no Nashville heat chicken?
No, don't know. Don't know what lunch is. Just know what breakfast is going to be.
Okay.
I love this cafe. Check it out.
All right. So until next week, we are out of here.